Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. And today we will be talking about paints. More specifically, of course, the paints that I use for my customs. Um, so first of all, you know, yes, there is such a thing as um, not all paints, are great, but also not because some paints are cheap doesn't mean you can't use them. So um, obviously you don't want to use like preschool, kindergarten, paints, for your major custom projects, right? Like dollar store paints or something like that, because obviously the most important thing about the paints that you're going to be using for your customs is that you'll want paints with strong pigmentation. Most of these paints that you're going to use, unless they come in a spray can, um, there's going to be some measure of thinning when you're going to use them. So once you thin down the paints, you want them to be strong enough pigmentation wise so that as you thin down the paint, you don't lose the strength of the color, right? So that's why some certain paints that are cheap, or as I want to say affordable, right? Sometimes may get a bad rap, but actually, they're just as good as any other expensive brand of paint. Uh, Now, I only have a certain, um, you know, limited budget, so I can't afford to try out every single brand of paint that's out there in the market. But I do have, a little bit of everything that you may want to try out, and all of these are, pretty readily available at some of your art stores, or you can just buy them online, right? Just know where to look for them. And yeah, let's um, let's get started. So again, off the bat, I'm gonna show you some of the more affordable type paints that I have, and I mostly use. Um, so I've got these paints, uh, you know, Craft Smart brand paints. Now, the thing about these paints is that all of these have, if you look at the label at the back, and hopefully the camera will focus. There you go. Right there. All all purpose, right? So you want to make sure that if you're going to buy some of these craft paints, that they say that they are all-purpose or multi-purpose or something of the like. Um, because some of these paints will adhere better to different surfaces. However, when you're using the water-based acrylics, right, it's recommended that you use some sort of primer as a base before applying the the paint, right? So maybe we should start with the primers first. So as you can see here, I primarily use this Duplicolor, Automotive primer. right? It's an equal primer and a filler, so any I mean, it's not gonna cover up deep scratches or and everything, but it will help cover up some surface level scratches. If you're sanding down your projects um, and you happen to use, you know, some heavier grit that you didn't intend to use, after you try and smooth it out, and if you can't get rid of the some of the deeper or surface type scratches on a figure or whatever project you're working, this will help fill it, right? So I'm only showing the gray primer here, but I have also in black and in white, right? Next to it is the clears that I use. Well, this is also it says adhesion promoter, but it's the same thing as a primer, and this is clear, right? So after, let's say you're working on a project that is, you know, multi-layered, so to speak. So after you apply you know, your first round of paints to a project and you want to protect it, you can either use a layer of clear to protect the paint, and then you can proceed to maybe work on the washes and whatnot, or you can use the adhesion promoter, right? Since it's a clear, it's not going to do anything to the color. But yeah, so this should be on this end right here. Right. So these are the primers that I use, and these are the clears. This is also a clear, but these are also the clear. This is a clear acrylic lacquer paint. This is, I believe, on the glossier side. It doesn't say, but I've done some tests, and this is a little more. There it is. It says bright, so this is a little on the glossy side, and this is a matte finish. Of course, from the cap, you can tell that it's a little brighter, right? And this is a little foggy, so this is a matte finish. And this one specifically, I bought. It says here, you know, in Spanish, but it's for rims, right? For wheels, your automotive car, for your car's wheels, right? So, you know, ultimately what you want here is the level of protection. Obviously, when you're on your car, you know, the roads are gonna have rocks and debris and whatnot that's gonna be bouncing off the wheels of the car, so you want to prevent as much chipping as possible, right? So this clear is meant to add that extra level of protection. So for your projects, this is, you know, this is what you want in case of, you know, you want to protect from scuffing or you know, an accidental scratching, or the figure may, you know, take a shelf dive and whatnot. You want to make sure that the paint is protected as much as possible. So I went with this clear, and so far so good. Also, I have in a spray can these different types of Duplicolor paints. This is an acrylic lacquer paint, and this is an acrylic enamel paint. The difference is mainly just the type of finish. If you can think of, let's see, fingernail paint, it's a little more thicker. It's gonna dry really hard, So you gotta be careful how you apply it, right? The enamel paints. Of course, if you're gonna apply it like fingernail paint, which I also happen to have here, but I haven't used it. But you wanna be able to, in this case here, you wanna thin it before you use it. But in spray can, you just wanna be applying it in really small layers, right? You don't wanna cake it on. As opposed to the lacquer paint, which is a little thinner, and again, you still don't want to apply it too heavy-handed coats, right? But it's a little more forgiving since it's a little thinner. So you may apply a couple extra coats of paint, but you're gonna get some great results. And also, I also have this finish, this Deco art finish, Dura Clear. I've got the gloss and the matte. Although it looks white, it does, once it dries, it does come out clear. And as you can see, I've got some writing here. Thin, adding up to 20% H2O or water. I actually contacted the manufacturer, the brand, and asked in an email, what would be the most preferred amount that it is recommended to thin the clear and still have good results, because it doesn't say in the back, it doesn't give you instructions for that. And they and they answered back, and they said 20%, thin down up to 20%. So just 8 drops of this and 2 drops of whatever you're gonna use to thin it, right? So there's that. So again, now to the paints. So again, I have the Craft Smart brand of water-based acrylics. This is like, comprised of most of the collection that I have of paints. Between this and the Pinto brand, which is the local brand here in Mexico, but it's a very strong pigmentation paint. Even though if you thin it down, it's still gonna give you great results. So again, these are all these 4 here. These are all water based. Then I also have folk art, and again, these are all multi-surface or all-purpose, right? I also have Deco art. This is a brand. I haven't even had a chance to use this paint. For the most part, I buy paints. Let's see. Does it also say all surface and all of that? I believe so. I may have said so. Oh, right there in the front. Multi-surface, right? So usually when I buy paints, it's usually per project, but of course, you're gonna need, even though you may not need them at the time, but your basic colors, blues, reds, yellows, and your basic greens, and your basic color wheel colors. You're gonna use them eventually, so you can buy those 2 or 3 at a time. And then your metallics, your silvers, your golds, and then you can try and experiment with different types, like this one here. This is a steel gray. So I haven't used this one, but pretty sure I'm gonna use it eventually. Okay, so those are the quote-unquote affordable cheap paints that you can get, but they're still gonna work for you for these types of projects. Now we're gonna get into a couple of more expensive, you can say, hobby style paints. I have the Tamiya Paints. These are even though it says acrylic, this is an acrylic lacquer paint, so it's similar to the Automotive paint. So I have a few of these. I've got, you know, some blues, some blacks, and reds, and a few metallic colors, silver, gunmetal, you know, a few of those colors. But I do want to get my hands on more to try and use them for you know, different projects eventually. And then I also have some of the Vallejo colors. I've got some of their Mecha colors and their Model Air colors. These are primarily for airbrush application. I don't have one, but these are already pre-thinned. So when having at least one of these is what helped me have an idea of how much I need to thin my paints, because these, since these are pre-thinned already, you can, just by looking at them, you can get an idea of what kind of ratio you want for your paints to be thinned. So depending, different paints react differently. So as far as you know, how much thinning is required. So I can't, let's say for using, you know, your basic colors, if I drop, you know, let's say equal amounts, right, 50-50 of water, well, I mean, your whatever solution you're using to thin your paint and paint, 50-50, it may turn out different than if I use 50-50 on, say, like metallic colors, because of the way the pigmentation is on metallic colors. There are actual like metallic flakes in this, so you may not want to thin it in the same ratios as you would your basic flat colors, right? So there's that to take into consideration. That's why sometimes ratios can be a little misleading. I say always go by eye, and of course, you know, testing beforehand. But yeah, when I got these helped me a lot to get an idea of how much I need to thin my paints. Right. Also, I have this on the side here. This is a touch-up paint, automotive touch-up paint. I've got these all at the same place, you know, the AutoZone and whatnot. So this is also a, I believe this is a lacquer, lacquer acrylica. So yeah, it's an acrylic lacquer. So it's basically the same as this over here, or the same as the Tamiya Paints, right? These are all acrylic lacquers. So you can if you have the Tamiya brand, let's say thinner that they have, you can use it on all types of acrylic lacquer paints to thin them down, right? I use, you know, basic, you know, alcohol, so the results are pretty much the same. However, I do want to test those, you know, mediums out, just to see if what the results are, and if it's true that, you know, they really are better. You know, different brands, even Vallejo has different types of mediums for thinning the paints. So yeah, eventually I may want to try and test them out as well. I also have this type of paint. This is Angelus leather paint. This is pretty much like your craft paint, in the style that it's a water-based acrylic. Although they say it's you know, for leather, I bought these initially for painting my sneakers, mainly my Air Jordans. So I have a few sneakers that I repainted. These are the paints that everyone recommended, the Angelus brand paints. So I'm not so sure if there's a real difference between this and some of craft paint. I'm sure there is. I haven't dug deep into what kind of difference the paints, their makeup and whatnot, and what kind of a difference there is. But they both work the same. You both thin them with water, and they work just fine. So I have this Angelus brand. I've got some red. I got black. I really like their flat black. I primarily use the flat black for on the transformers for the vehicles, on the tires. They kind of give them that rubber look to them, and yeah, the flat black works great for that. And then I have the even though this is not in the bottle it came in, Liquitex. These usually come in those squeeze bottles like toothpaste. This paint in particular is the last that I had when I was still studying at college, or early 2000s, and I still had some of that paint, and I had enough to fill up 3 of these little bottles. This is the pure paint. It's really thick. I mean, I'm shaking and shaking, and it's still pretty thick in there. I've got in a different bottle. I've got pre-thinned already, but this is the pure paint. This is really thick. Look at that. So these Liquitex paints have really good strong pigmentation. So as you thin them, you're still gonna retain the quality of the paint. So these are also pretty good. And again, since these are really thick, the more well, not the more, but as you thin them, you're gonna get more out of the bottle. So those, I don't know how many ounces there were, like 8-ounce bottles. You're practically gonna get 3 times as much paint as you thin it, right? So from this, I can probably still thin it and probably get 2 more bottles of the same size from this. So those Liquitex paints are pretty good. And then finally, I showed these in a previous video as I was doing some testing. These art studio paints that I had for a while. Never really tested them before, but yeah, I mean, they're okay. I've got like 12 of these, pretty much the basic colors, and some that I didn't have. Yeah, so far, I haven't really used them on a project, but eventually I'll probably will find a use for them. I don't know where you can find these paints, because these came in a set that my mother gave me years and years and years and years ago, along with some watercolor paints, some oils from the same brand. So I don't know if you can buy these individually or not. But yeah, these are pretty good. I'll eventually find some use for them. Also, although not shown here, I also have some dry pastels. You can use those to like add shadowing, and dry brushing on your figures. So as you grind down the pastel stick to to a powdery substance, you can apply those with a brush on your like using a brush like this, right? Almost like applying makeup what the hell is this sticking to? Whoa, I need to throw that away. Almost like applying makeup to a figure. So yeah. Dry pastels are also a good option for that. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions about any of these paints, let me know, and I'll answer as best as I can. Hopefully I'll be able in the future to get different types of brands of paints. I've never tried the Citadel paints. There are a bunch of other paints that I would like to test out in the future and see how they work. And hopefully I get a chance to feature them in one of my videos. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And quick drop-in before going. A few things that I wanted to add. One, when using the water-based acrylics, like the Vallejos as well, it's recommended that you use a primer as the base. The lacquer type paints, you don't really need a primer because they adhere better to the surface. Again, you can use it, of course, a primer, but if you just clean the surface, the plastic, don't have any residue on it, use rubbing alcohol to clean the plastic. You can use these paints perfectly fine without having to use a primer. But when using the water-based acrylics, it is recommended that you use a primer first so that the paint will stick better. And a couple of things that I forgot to mention. As a brush on primer, I use this Bullseye brand 123 by Zinzes. This is a Rust-Oleum brand, which is a multi-surface or for all surfaces. I got this at Home Depot. I was specifically trying to look for the Rust-Oleum brand that is specific for plastic, but I couldn't find any. And the guys, they recommended that this works just as good. I've tried it, and yeah, it does work. It comes in white. Well, I mean, it comes in different colors, but the one that I got came in white. And you can tint it, right, using, well, in this case, I used ink, black ink. But you can use, your colors as well to tint the color of the primer to whatever you need. So I've got bottles, in black, not black, in white, and in gray, as well as diluted and non-diluted, or thinned, or tint, or thinned, or whatever you want to call it. The instructions for how much you can thin it is on the back. I think it says similar to the Deco, about 20% or so. And then I also have floor polish. This is Angelus Brand floor polish. It's almost similar to the Dura Clear, where it's excuse me, like the Dura Clear. It comes out in like a milky color, but it clears. It dries clear. And yeah, so if you can't find a clear gloss varnish at your art supply store, you can try using the floor polish. So yeah, that's the only thing that I wanted to add before I forgot. And now we can go. Later.